Hello and welcome back to Video Games. I am Tim Rogers and I'm coming to you live, pre-recorded from my hotel room at the scenic Westin Bonaventure in downtown Los Angeles. Founded in 1976, I believe this building was built. That up on Wikipedia if you get a chance. E3's over. E3 2019 is over. I'm here with Scott Strichart. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Strichart.
Here I am, a linguist.
I am the localization producer for the Yakuza series.
So I call him the Ryuga Gotoku series, is what I call them.
That's accurate.
That's what I tend to call them, where I'm from. So you come to me on the last night of Electronic 3. As I am on the precipice of rest, to disturb me in your selfish mission to transform the game Judgment into a worldwide phenomenon.
If you would be so gracious, Mr. Rogers.
Well, let's see what we can do. Now, I have played your video game. I've played all of it.
The whole thing.
Yeah, I actually did play the whole thing. It's great.
Awesome.
It's very, very great. I was talking to Nagoshi-san actually on the first day of E3, and one of the last questions I asked him was, "How do you guys make games that are this huge all the time?"
What did he say to that?
He had a very, very humble, human, but also smart and scientific answer. I mean, you know Nagoshi-san. He has been making video games for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Very, very long time. He's done, I think, everything. The guy can do everything.
A luminary.
Has done everything. God darn F-Zero GX. Mm-hmm. You know, the Sega Rally, whatever, right? So the guy had this long answer where he's just like, we've just got a good pipeline. We know how to prototype stuff. We know how to get our little features, mini games in there, and we end up with just this giant pile of stuff, and everything we know more or less it's all gonna fit in there, and it's all gonna work smoothly, and we know. I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. And then I remembered you, and I thought, you got to deal with these goddamn video games with 80 hours, I would say.
When all said and done, probably.
80 hours. I spent 80 hours on Judgment, right? It's like
incredible.
It's about 80 hours worth of stuff to do for 80 hours if you are real chill with it. So what is that like? How much of a goddamn pain is that?
I mean, we've been behind since I took the job. You know, when Yakuza was in this state of being like almost forgotten in the West, and we're picking up the pieces at zero and already kind of 2 or 3 games at that point behind, and it's just been this slow catch up that, you know, we've been rolling through them. And I think now we're established with the same type of like pipeline thing where we're like, okay, we know what this file is going to be, we know what that's going to do. Let's just get it done, crank it out, look at previous text. Now that's just that kind of thing. And so we've gotten faster too. But with Judgment, this was the first time that we got to start localizing a game prior to them finishing it.
Yeah.
So we're looking at it and everyone's T-posing out and we're like, oh, we don't know how to do this.
So like while they're still working on it in Japan, they knew while they were planning or making the game that it's going to come out in English. It was just a given. There was no question.
I mean, we always have to do the thing where we're like, yeah, we're going to do this game. But yeah, there's a level of trust now I think that we've established, which is awesome because the RGG whole team, like you said, they're incredible at what they do. They know their pipe. I mean, with Judgment, especially with the Kimura Take, we got to see that stuff before he was even like in the game, which was a big deal because you can't talk about Kimura Take before they're ready to talk about Kimura Take.
Yeah, guy's a big deal for the fans at home of the Yakuza series who are not necessarily familiar with Kimura Takuya. I've seen him described in the past. So I mean, I've been on the internet for a while. I often remember Kimura Takuya gets described different ways in the Western press whenever he is mentioned. It's he's the Brad Pitt of Japan or the so-and-so of Japan.
See, Americans, we always need to compare something. We always need to have some type of idea to compare it. And it's like when Yakuza's like, oh, it's the Grand Theft Auto of Japan. It's absolutely not. And it's its own thing, guys.
No.
Can't people they exist at their own.
Yeah, so we can't, so Kimura Takuya in a Ryuga Gotoku studio game is not something that translates directly into, well, it's like if Tom Cruise was in Grand Theft Auto. It's like, no, that's not it.
When I've had to explain it, because when I say, you know, Kimura Takuya, they're like, who's that? I'm like, it's like if we got Justin Timberlake.
He's never been in a game before this one in Japan, right?
It's not to my knowledge.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's been on TV dramas, he's been in movies, he was in SMAP.
Yeah.
God darn SMAP. He's
phenomenon.
Just, Nagoshi was saying little children know him, old ladies know him. somebody with like that range and just a guy with this broad, extreme mainstream appeal, just in a video game but in a video game as a protagonist, as a deep, complex, like super layered protagonist. And I talked to Nagoshi about this. I said that I find the character of Yagami to be super relatable compared to Kiryu. And I mean, I think Kiryu is pretty relatable, especially to me, because I'm really tough.
Yeah, you look it.
Yeah, and I can beat dudes up real hard. He's like super relatable, and the story is not exactly the same type of comic booky story that you're used to in the Yakuza games. So what was that like with this? How different was it from translating a Yakuza game?
It was tough. Like, we had to find his voice. Like, we didn't understand him at first. When we were kind of looking at the text, we're like, oh, he's kind of boring. We were afraid of that. We were like, oh, he's not coming off with that same, like, there's no machismo like Kiryu. There was no, like, he had a little more, I don't know how to describe it, but there's like this, like, he's polite and very, like, you know, because he has clients and he's super, like, nice to everyone, and we're like, I don't understand, what is his edge, what is his angle? And then we started to understand that, you know, there was almost like this little edge of meanness to him too. But we realized that it's not mean, it's like sarcasm. He hides his pain underneath this, like, veneer of sarcasm, essentially, you know? Like, and I think that was when it clicked for us. We're like, okay, we understand who he is. He's not, we didn't want to look at him as like this, like, well, he's kind of this part of Kiryu or this part of Majima. He's very much his own dude, and and finding that voice for us was key. And when it finally clicked, it was awesome.
So Nagoshi was saying that Kimono Takeda brought a lot of that to the character in just the performance, and they wrote it around him. And Kimono Takeda's been in a lot of dramas. There's one, Hero. Do you know the drama Hero, where he plays a lawyer? Like, he plays
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Leather jacket wearing lawyer. Like, I like that one. Yeah, there's like a scene early in the game in Japanese where Shintani Sensei calls him a hero. Like,
oh, that's a reference.
Yeah.
You're just...
So like that was a reference to Hero. I caught a bunch of drama references in that game when I played it, because that's the sort of grown-up I've turned into, somebody who can spot Japanese drama references in a video game.
That's incredible. That's a talent.
That's if only it can be, if only it could make me happy. Big game, long game, and how long about was this project, this translation?
We started looking at it in, I want to say, like January of 2018.
Oh, well, that's like 12 months before the release. Well, before the announcement of the game, yeah.
We took this one to completion probably by the summer in terms of like actual English being done, but then we obviously had to we brought a dub in, we brought French, Italian, German, Spanish subtitles in, so that then we had to go to QA after all that was in. We were doing all the lip flap adjustments.
Lip flap adjustments?
Yes.
For the English?
Yes.
Wow, that's wild.
Yes. We had to recut some of the scenes around some of the English dialogue, which, you know, they allowed me to do personally, which was awesome. And yeah, we still managed to get it out 6 months after the Japanese release, which is, I mean...
it's totally wild how quick the turnaround is. These games, the Ryuga Gotoku Studio games, have not been dubbed in a very long time.
10 years.
It's been 10 years since... When was the last one that was dubbed?
Yakuza 1.
Yakuza 1, which had Mark Hamill.
And Michael Madsen and Rachel Lee Cook, and some names in there.
And it was... that dub was weird.
It kind of was.
It's okay for us to say it was weird.
I think that's a fair assessment.
I remember it having like an extreme amount of F words in it.
Yeah, because here's the thing, and this is why that Japanese, the GTA of Japan kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
When you go back to the time of 2006, what was popular? Grand Theft Auto. So they're like, oh, we've got a Grand Theft Auto, and you get the people out there who are like, we're just gonna make this our Grand Theft Auto and just make it really edgy and get people to curse a lot. And really kind of ham that up and really kind of go to town on it. And it's like, that wasn't ever really what Yakuza was about.
You've probably seen a lot of Yakuza films, right? You've probably seen a bunch of them in your day. They're just not equatable, in my opinion, like Yakuza films, like the history, the tapestry of Japanese Yakuza films. It's not really equatable with our idea of like an Italian mobster film or a mafia film. They're really not on the same artistic wavelength.
No.
The Yakuza films have had this this nice texture to them, this inimitable texture. And I feel like the first Yakuza really had that. It had almost a Takeshi Kitano like vibe to it, almost.
There's a sadness to him. There's like this
Yeah.
underlying undercurrent of dudes just knowing that they're wrong, kind of like.
It's just this very interesting melancholy that does not a strangeness. Like there's this weird otherworldliness, and I feel like the first Yakuza game had that, and then being translated into English with all the GTA sweary words.
Right, like taking that Italian mobster kind of style.
Yeah. It as a cultural artifact, I've got to say, I still think it's kind of a cool thing. Like I was recently rewatching like a playthrough of it.
Of Yakuza 1 PS2.
Of Yakuza 1 PS2
Amazing.
in English. And I'm like, oh, this is wild. And then how long was it between Yakuza 1 and Yakuza 2 being released in the US?
Yakuza 1 came out in 2006. Yakuza 2 was, I think, beginning in 2008, but the PS3 had already launched. And
Yeah.
they dropped the dub. And, they just, I mean, at that point, the game came out to die. It's literally, Yakuza 2 is like the worst selling game in the whole franchise for the West.
Now there's Kiwami 2 too.
Yeah, and that
sort
fixed
of
it.
bring that back.
Yeah, because it's also one of the most hailed stories. People love that story.
Yakuza 2 is a very good story.
Yeah.
Very good plot-wise. I actually haven't played through Kiwami 2 yet. I played the first two back on the PS2, back in Japan. When I worked at Sony Computer Entertainment in Japan, I got all those games for free. I remember getting that first Yakuza game on the PS2 and getting it like a week before it came out, and taking it home, just like burrowing into it for like a weekend, just solid, and just being like, wow. I was saying on a stream I did recently of Judgment, it's the first video game that I felt like I binge played. Wow. You know, like you binge watch a TV show, whereas you can play a video game for a week solid, right? And it doesn't really feel the same it's not the same emotional, psychological texture as binge watching a TV show. You're not binge playing, but like a Yakuza game, I can binge play. I just sit there and it goes down easy. It has challenges.
Yeah.
It has little mysteries to solve and things to find and frustrations to encounter, but it goes down smooth. So I guess my question is, do you love these games?
I was working marketing at Square Enix in 2015, and they called and they're like, "Yo, we're building a team," and it's like they're gonna bring back kind of the Yakuza thing, because it had been, Yakuza 5 hobbled out the door with with Sony coming in to help, and the San Francisco Sega office closing down. I mean, it barely made it out the door, right? So when they knew they had Zero on their hands, which was obviously everyone who touched that game knew it was a gem.
Zero's incredible.
Yeah. So they called me to kind of come back for that, and I was like, oh, Yakuza, like it's this Japanese GTA. I had the exact same misconceptions of the series until I got in. Sam Mullen, the guy who he's the kind of director of localization now, he hands me the stack and he's like, go. So I binge played.
Yeah.
For Yakuza 1 through Yakuza 5 from November to December. I got through every single game and I was like, I'm sold, I'm in.
Yakuza 0, I mean, even after playing Yakuza 1, 2, 3, 4, like even after playing all these games, playing Yakuza 0, it just like, the beginning of it is, there's a situation involving these little 3x3 meter plots of land in like some corner of Kabukicho or
it's so
Kamurocho.
Grounded.
It's like, wow, there's this element of grounded, super true crime, and it's like, you've just gotta love that stuff. It's just so logistical and petty almost. And you're like, oh, this is, and I mean, even the casual player who's not acquainted with tough guy stuff like me, because I've, been around, I've seen tough stuff. Even the person who's not acquainted with crime will be like, I think this is probably what real crime is like.
Yeah,
you
get the sense.
It's like, I find that super remarkable. And Judgment has slightly more of that.
Yeah, it feels that way. It does.
And how long have you been localizing video games?
2007. I started at Atlas. It was I applied for an editor and a QA job. They gave me the QA job. But I kept going, and they're like, okay, you can edit a game. And I did this little DS game called Drone Tactics by Success.
Drone Tactics?
Drone Tactics. It was Khonshu Wars in Japan.
I know Success. The company, not the abstract concept. I haven't known that one yet. But I know Success. And then where did it go from there?
To straight into Trauma Center, Under the Knife 2, into Persona 4, into 3D Game Heroes, I eventually left to go to level 5, where I worked a little bit on Ni no Kuni and the entire Guild series, which was awesome because you got to interact with all those like creators like Matsuno and Inafune and like all those little games that they
See,
played.
I hear you just mention this, like you played Persona, you localized Persona 5, or 4, you worked on 4. Right? And I'm just like, and Ni no Kuni 1, and I'm hearing all these, and I'm just like, man, what a cool job this guy has. First of all, I've localized video games before, and let me tell you, it's cool to think about. It's definitely a job. You do not play video games all day. I don't play video games all day either. I play video games 1 hour per 12 hours of work, I think. But I hear this, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm very unfamiliar with your work because I played all those games in Japanese.
Oh,
but at the same time, I'm like, wow, what a juicy steak of a game to translate.
Oh yeah.
And it's got to be a lot of pain. Persona 4, what a juicy steak
That was
of a game to work
steak.
on. Yeah, it's like a 6-inch thick porterhouse. They don't even make cows like that.
Right.
That's some Gyuga Gotoku right there.
Oh snap! You went.
Wow. Little bit of Japanese humor. It's got to be a lot of pain and a lot of work. But at the same time, what a darn thing to look back at.
It feels good to be able to say you worked on Persona 4, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. What made you learn Japanese?
This is the kicker, Tim. I don't know Japanese.
You don't know Japanese.
I don't know Japanese. I'm the biggest fluke in the history of the localization industry.
It's incredible.
Because I've been doing this, just writing the good English.
I will confess I knew this about you.
Okay.
Okay, I just don't want to. When you're translating something into English, English is a lot more important.
That's the kind of the prevailing thought.
You need a writer.
Right. You do need a writer to do localization. That's the thing.
Not all translators are writers.
That's what I'm trying to say.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, but localization, that's writing. How did it feel to not only write for Judgment, but to write the voice script, to write lines for voice actors to read? How does that feel? How weird does that feel for the Yakuza style of game?
It's a challenge, man. Kiwami 2, we busted that out in like 4 to 5 months, like the slow burn. It felt like we were doing everything we already knew how to do in perfect harmony and synchronization. So for Judgment to be able to bring out the dub plus a new sort like subtitles for the other languages, like that felt like going back to being challenged.
Yeah.
Getting that sense of things right, and yeah, there's a lot of hard work and overtime and doing things on the weekend and whatnot, but like being able to do it was really cool. I think there's a certain sense that, with Yakuza, when you write for these games, you're trying to write how real people sound. You're trying to write how real people talk. It's not this anime level, like, we're not talking about crazy mythological creatures or dungeons and such. It's just people on the street and how they should sound, and that's the challenge. Is making sure that you're not going into this writing style that's like fake. You want to make sure that these people are grounded, and that was the challenge with the dub, because we're like, leave your anime voice at home. We want you to sound like you would in a lawyer's office, like you're playing a lawyer, not a sword-wielding prince.
Not this a lawyer. By lawyer, you don't mean Phoenix Wright. You mean a lawyer. I've actually told people who are asking, like I've done videos about localization before, and I get a lot of people asking me what video games to play in order to learn Japanese. And I always tell them Yakuza 0. Play Yakuza 0 and read the subtitles and just repeat the words people are saying. Maybe not all the tough guy words.
I don't know if I'd recommend using a Yakuza game to learn Japanese.
Okay, so the tough guy words have limited utility, but they also, you can tell when somebody's mouthing off in those games.
Right.
You can tell when they're talking naturally. But now I tell people, or I will once it's out, I'll tell people Judgment, because I think it has a far lower number of instances of super tough guy outburst yelling. I mean, you get your punks in the street, like all the normal dialogues. If they were to play the game with the Japanese on,
yeah,
it's good. It's good natural talking.
It is natural talking. That's I think one of the things that the writers on the Japan side excel at, just being natural.
So while I was considering that, like I thought, How many video games do I know where there's just like natural, it feels like an everyday conversation, and you get a game that has great voice acting, something like The Last of Us has fantastic voice acting. You get something like that where it's like, yeah, they're not really talking like normal people. They're talking incredibly well and they're talking like believable people, but their situation is so far-flung. Not everyday speaking, whereas in Judgment we get a lot of people on the ground, people who go to fast food and convenience stores. Like we get that kind of talking, and it's just like really, really wonderful. So you've also done 2 sets of subtitles.
Correct.
For this game. This is something in the anime fans, they refer to a phenomenon known as dub titles.
Dub titles, which is a sin.
Yeah. So dub titles are...
Because English is always a priority language, right? So
Yeah.
like we're the only game I think that has ever been just like where we've been in Japanese only for so long, you know, that obviously Japanese needed to be somewhat of a priority language. You couldn't just tell all the Yakuza fans like, hey, we're gonna make English the priority language, and when you play it in Japanese now, you're gonna deal with like whatever we said for the English.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the impetus for, you know, like, what if we didn't have to do that? What if we didn't want to like make English the priority language and literally just said, you get to choose your language and it's gonna sound right either way.
Can you play in English with the subtitles?
We can't actually separate it. So like if you play in English, you get what the English actors are saying. If you play in Japanese, you get what the Japanese, what the more authentic, I would say.
Yeah, the literal. The literal
right,
subtitles.
a little bit more literal.
There's value in both of those, I think. I tried to tell the Square Enix people at Final Fantasy VII Remake that they should have dub titles and subtitles in the final game. We'll see if it works out.
I'd love to see that.
Because I think the writing in that Final Fantasy VII Remake is pretty good.
It sounded good. It sounded good.
Yeah, I was impressed with it. Did you play that?
I didn't get to play it.
They didn't let you in as a pro?
As an ex-Square employee, they didn't let me in.
Those narcs, those absolute narcs, they should have let you in. Judgment is coming.
It's June 25th.
June 25th, 2019. And once it's out, it's going to be available forever?
To my knowledge, yes.
Until we're all dead. It'll still be on store shelves and on the PSN. And the game is wonderful. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you translated it and localized it and dubbed it and subtitled it. And I'm so glad that people are going to get to play this game because it's wild and wonderful. And it goes so many places and has so many twists. I was quite frankly shocked numerous times. I'm sorry that you probably didn't get to experience the shocks the same way I did as you translated the game while it was in development. In other words, I win again. But thanks for the video game. And thanks for the interview.
Oh, thank you for having me in your room as you're trying to rest.
As I lay dying. You can just go ahead and let yourself out whenever you want. You may stay here
I'll think
as
about
I
that.
drift upon the lake of sleep.
Do you need quench? Do you need some water before I go?
Quench? Water glass?
Quench water glass?
Quench?
The quench water glass.
Quench? Water glass?
Quench? Water glass?
I was born stupid. However, I will not die hungry. Video games forever. Kotaku.com.
I guess I'm just gonna let him sleep.
So the English voice cast, full of incredible people. Who all have you got in there?
The lead actors played by the lead roles played by Greg Chun. We've got Crispin Freeman, Fred Tatasciore, Jeremy Lee. The list goes on. Keith Farley. There's 42 actors.
Not 43.
42.
I'm saying there should be 43. I'm saying you should have called me.
Next time I will.
Quench? Water glass?